Today we're watching 3 most disturbing Reddit threads by Chill Scare. Now, I haven't done one of these videos in a long time, and you know, this popped up in my recommendation, so we have to, you know, react to. We all gotta react to, you know what I'm saying? If you guys like watching scary videos and stuff like that, bro, leave a comment, leave a like, you know what I'm saying? Because I do like watching scary videos. Probably not the best time because like, it's already late, like dark as fuck right now, and it's like 1 in the morning for me, so it's kind of like you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm doing it for you guys. I'm doing this for you. If you guys are new here, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 1K, and yeah, that's our goal here. Let's get this shit. Let's go.
29th, 2022, Reddit user Liz Gillies made a desperate post in the Glitch in the Matrix subreddit reading, "I am losing my mind. I was never one to believe in the paranormal or whatever, but I have no idea what is going on with me right now, and I'm genuinely considering seeking professional help. I live..."
Look, you know what's crazy? I have read a lot of Reddit stories from a lot of people, especially, bro, I listen to like Reddit stories from YouTube, whatever the fuck, and the majority that I listen to, you know, sometimes I can't really tell if it's real or fake. People will like make up a story so that they can get some like you know, get some eyes on the story, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know what's real or fake. So
in a really small shared dorm apartment with 2 roommates. There's this hallway that if you face it, there are 2 bedrooms to your right, 1 bedroom to your left, and a closet at the end of the hallway facing you. The bedroom on the left is right next to the closet. When we moved in, my roommate always complained that they got a closet instead of a bathroom like me and my other roommate had in our rooms. This closet has a bunch of our shared stuff, including my clothes, gifts, keepsakes, whatever. Today I got back from visiting my parents and I came back to put away some clothes from this closet, but I opened it and saw a bathroom. A bathroom with a toilet, a shower, and everything.
What?
I was only gone for 2 days and we rent this place, so it couldn't have been randomly built or something.
Yeah.
I told my roommates, but they said it was always a bathroom and they had no idea what I was talking about. I can't find any of the stuff that was in that closet anymore, even though I had a ton of memorable keepsakes in that closet. What is going on? I spent all...
Bro, that is so weird. Like 1 minute it was in the closet, now it's just a bathroom. Like, and your homie's telling you, "Nah, that's always been a bathroom." Like, bro, you pranking me at this point. You know what I'm saying? Don't like, just where's my shit, bro?
day just sulking in my room feeling miserable. I am not crazy, but that bathroom was a closet just 3 days ago. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm genuinely considering seeing a psychologist right now. Now,
yeah, bro, like, you know, if you just, bro, damn, bro, this had to be a prank, because bro, I'm gonna actually lose my mind if one day is just a closet and you pull your shit there, and the next it's just a bathroom, and your friends are telling you, "No, this has always been a bathroom." Like, bro, no, this is dead as it was a closet. Then where's my shit then? You know what I'm saying? Where is my stuff? Because there's no way, and heck, that this was a bathroom this whole time. If it was a bathroom, I would have noticed it. I would have, you know what I'm saying? When you first go into a hotel, you look around. You look around. You check out the place. You know, you kind of like spectate the whole, you know, area. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know where the bathroom, where the closet, and where the area you're gonna sleep in. For the fact that you can't find the closet, especially if it's just a normal ass room, bro, is creepy, bro. Either in a haunted hotel or something, or whatever the fuck, or you're actually losing your mind. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro.
Now, as far as Glitch in the Matrix stories go, this is exactly the kind of story the subreddit is filled with, where one person has a strange experience where it felt like reality briefly malfunctioned. And because they can't really prove what they saw, the people in this community find it easier to land on the explanation that feels more comfortable, that it wasn't an errant perception, but rather some kind of slip in reality itself. But even by those standards, this post felt strange, because the OP wasn't trying to sell anyone on alternate realities. In fact, they opened the post by clarifying that they didn't believe in such theories and were already considering seeing a professional. And that self-awareness is exactly what made the details so unsettling. Unlike most posts on the subreddit, which usually revolve around much smaller incidents, like a small object disappearing for a moment before reappearing, or a split-second change in perception, OP experienced an entire part of their apartment structurally change while they were away for 2 days.
What's something that, you know, like, how to explain it? What's something you're willing to go to, like, seek help in within the day? You know what I mean? like what just happened right now, because she couldn't. There was a closet and now was a bathroom, and instantly she was like, "Yeah, I need to go to the to psychiatrist, whatever the fuck it's called, like seek doctors and seek help." I don't know. It has to be something so crazy to just within 24 hours. You just have to like, yeah, I have to go to the doctors for this, bro, because this is not normal. I'm seeing things. I'm misplacing things, and like a lot of shit is not right. So, what do you guys think?
But even more strangely, nobody else seemed to remember the building being any different. As far as their roommates were concerned, the closet had never existed at all. Naturally, people in the comments started trying to help the OP figure out what happened. Some leaned into the idea that if the apartment had somehow changed, then maybe the missing keepsakes hadn't disappeared, they'd just been moved somewhere else. While others suggested checking old photos of the apartment, looking for anything that could confirm whether that space was ever listed or used as a closet in the first place. However, because of the nature of this subreddit, it didn't take long for the thread to devolve into paranormal speculation. Users floated everything from alternate universes, timeline jumps, to quantum immortality. Some even suggested that OP might have died during their trip and that their consciousness had somehow jumped into a different timeline. At one point,
Bro. Look, I don't fully believe in stuff like that, bro. But sometimes I really think about that stuff, you know? Stuff like this, I question a lot about our reality, about just everything in our lives, bro. And whether you believe it or not, bro, sometimes I feel like people who don't believe in that shit, bro, sometimes they question stuff like that. Whether like what the fuck, like what the fuck are we even here? Why is everything the way it is? You know what I'm saying? People start questioning stuff, and that's fine. It's okay to question things. It's it could be a scary thing, but some people don't like questioning it. People just leave it alone. That's just how things are.
The OP actually tried following some of the bizarre advice they were getting to make any sense of the situation, but sadly, none of it seemed to work. For a while, it really did start to feel like there was no explanation, like OP had genuinely experienced some kind of time glitch. However, the reality behind the situation was a lot more simple, and a lot more devastating. Shortly after the post went up, a user named OddCorgi30 asked the OP what kind of items had actually been stored inside the mysteriously vanished closet. But instead of naming specific keepsakes or valuables, the OP answered vaguely, almost like they didn't fully know what even was inside. I don't know, some clothes, old Christmas gifts, jewelry, some other stuff I can't remember. This was strange, but it didn't prove anything on its own. Most people would struggle to list every item in their closet. However, in this case, those missing items were the main proof OP had that the closet ever existed. So, if their memory of the contents was already vague, then naturally it raises questions about the larger memory attached to those contents too. It's possible OP's mind had built an entire memory around something that never existed in the first place. Memory distortion to this scale, where someone is convinced an entire physical space has changed, can be an early sign of neurological deterioration, including conditions like dementia. But at the time, nobody in the
that could be possibly true. Dementia could be one of the reasons. I'm not sure if I thought it only happens when you're in like your oldest stage in life. You know what I'm saying? When you're older, you start losing memories and you get dementia, and that's sad to see. It's sad to kind of witness it. But like, is that really possible to have like that in like such an early age? I'm pretty sure like she has to be very young. You know what I'm saying? Like based on like what she's talking about, like I don't know. I just think that she is on something, but I don't know, bro. Not to say I'm not saying drugs or anything. Maybe like something like she's not very aware of. Something like a like what's it called? A what's the word? I think of a word. But I don't know. She's fighting something that isn't really very knowing yet. So I don't know. I'm fucking rambling, bro. We're just gonna keep fucking going, bro. I don't know
Thread
what I'm
considered
doing.
that possibility. Instead, the comments just pushed the OP deeper into the idea that what they were experiencing was real. People started sharing their own glitch in the Matrix stories, reinforcing the belief that nothing was wrong with the OP and what they were experiencing was, in a way, normal. Some even went as far as to say that seeing a professional was not only unnecessary but harmful. Then, roughly 2 weeks later, the OP edited the post with one short sentence. Edit, October 15. I have a brain tumor.
Oh shit.
Suddenly, everything the commenters had attributed to a glitch started looking like the symptoms of a life-threatening medical condition. The OP never shared what type of tumor they had. But brain tumors are well documented to cause memory distortion, hallucinations, confusion, and changes in perception. And depending on where the tumor is located, they can also interfere with spatial awareness and the brain's ability to process physical environments correctly. Which means that the most likely explanation is that the
I think that makes more sense, but damn, bro, having a brain tumor sucks.
OP's brain had created or altered a memory so convincingly that it completely overrode what was actually in front of them. It's possible they had once lived somewhere with a closet in a similar location, and their brain merged that old memory with the apartment they were currently living in. But the most unsettling part is that we'll probably never know for sure, because...
Right, because it's crazy how the brain, really, like, it's amazing how much, like, the brain can do, and what it can create, like an illusion, and thinking that is real, bro. It's crazy what the brain can do, bro. Really is.
The OP never gave another update, and their Reddit activity appears to have stopped completely after that edit. And considering the average survival rate of some brain tumors among adults is only 14.6 months, there's a very real possibility that they are no longer alive. If that's true, then this thread may have documented one of the final moments of someone slowly losing their grip on reality, while thousands of strangers online convinced them that it was the universe glitching around them.
That's so sad.
On December 28, 2025, a Reddit post was made under the title, "Please help, random bare feet in snow showing up in front yard. It rained and snowed all day yesterday, so I decided to check out the backyard. I looked down and there are bare feet trackings around and near my car. I double checked it wasn't my slippers, but this was pure bare feet showing. We decided to set out a camera in the yard overnight. When we woke up, there was even more footprints, but nothing on the camera. Throughout the morning and afternoon, I was checking to see if there was more. About an hour ago, there was one more, but it was hard to tell since the snow is melting and there was a bunch of footprints to begin with." Alongside this, the LP posted several pictures of the prints. At first, a lot of people in the comments treated the situation like a strange but explainable incident, with some suggesting that one of the people in the house may have been sleepwalking. Others told the OP to check for a carbon monoxide leak, stating, "Check your house for carbon monoxide. One of the residents, including you, could be doing this and not remembering due to carbon monoxide poisoning." An exposure like that can cause hallucinations and memory gaps, which might explain why someone in the house was walking outside barefoot with no recollection of doing it. But a few hours later, the OP posted an update, and what they shared made the situation even more bizarre. They confirmed that nobody in the house sleepwalks, and that none of them had even been barefoot outside since August, so the...
Bro, if my own family member started sleepwalking, bro, I'm sorry, bro. I'm gonna have to lock the doors, bro. I'm gonna have to, like, strap you down to the fucking bed until you figure out what the fuck how to deal with this, bro. Is it curable? Is it something you have to deal with it for the rest of your life? Because, bro, I can't do that, bro. I can't just wake up and, like, I want to go get a drink or something or go to the bathroom, and I see my own family members fucking in the middle of, like, a hallway just standing there, bro. I'm like, bro, I'm gonna freak the fuck out. I can't, bro. I can't do that. I can't do it.
Prints couldn't have come from any of them. More importantly, after the first set of tracks appeared, they moved their Ring doorbell camera from the front of the house to the backyard, hoping it would catch whoever was responsible. But according to the OP, that didn't happen. Friday night, we moved the Ring doorbell camera that was at the front of the house to the backyard to catch the person who was walking around barefoot. The morning of Saturday, I go outside and there are even more prints now. Checked the camera and there was not a person detected and I did not see anybody. Even though the quality isn't great, I would definitely be able to see a grown man or a grown woman walking in our yard. The OP also posted a video clip of these prints.
I'm sorry. He said it was a bear, right? This is a grown man's, like, foot right there, bro. it could be like what he said, a carbon dioxide. What is the shit called? It could be that, but I don't know, bro. Someone is literally possibly. It could be a fucking ghost. Maybe it could be a ghost. Ghost could fuck. Ghost could really fuck you up, bro. Because not, bro. I'd be so pissed if I ever died and I became a ghost, and I see one of the ghosts. It's like, hey, let's fuck with him. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Let's fuck with him. He ain't gotta know. I'd be so fucking pissed. They're probably fucking dying laughing while we're just like so like paranoid, bro.
And the more they described the prints, the stranger the whole situation became.
That's a
These
big
weren't
foot.
normal tracks from someone walking across a yard. The spacing was unusual and inconsistent, without the steady rhythm you'd expect from a person moving through the snow. Some of the prints were clustered near the car, while others were facing the house, close to the windows, as if someone had been standing there looking in. But none of them
Bro, this has to be like a ghost, bro.
seemed to lead anywhere in and out of the property. Now, because this was posted to a paranormal subreddit, a large part of the discussion went exactly where you'd expect. People brought up spirits, skinwalkers, and mythical creatures. The OP, though, to their credit, didn't seem fully committed to the paranormal explanation. They admitted that they only turned to r/paranormal encounters after the camera failed to capture anybody moving through the yard, which may not have been the mystery they thought it was. But the subreddit's framing steered them away.
That's very true, bro. When there's like something paranormal that's going on, they kind of go to turn to Reddit because, you know, I'm pretty sure they're trying to get some likes and some eyes into the shit, bro. To get some views, bro. You know, hey, people love the mystery, bro. But sometimes if it's fake, that kind of ruins the mystery, you know.
From the most realistic explanation. As the top comment under the first post suggested, someone is scouting your house. Time to invest in security cameras and lights. And
Facts.
another commenter who claimed to be a reformed burglar explained why the person decided to do it barefoot. As a reformed bad guy, they're casing your place or probably a peeping Tom. I would take my shoes off when in and put them back on when out. The thing is, shoe soles leave identifiable treads that can be matched in an investigation. But bare feet or feet covered only by socks are far harder to trace back to anyone. So the fact that the person was barefoot may not have been random, but an intentional choice. And because the OP never mentioned contacting the police, whoever was outside realized they could keep coming back without attracting much attention. But one user presented another possibility that was a lot more terrifying. Google Hinterkaifeck. For those unfamiliar, the Hinterkaifeck murders are one of the most notorious unsolved cases in German history. In 1922, a farmer in Bavaria discovered fresh footprints in the snow leading to his farmstead, but none leading away. Days later, all 6 members of the household were found dead. Investigators later determined that the killer had been hiding inside the home, possibly for days before the attack. Even though the relevance of this example to OP's situation is limited, the possibility alone is enough to make the footprints feel much more dangerous. But the connections likely aren't true. For starters, the Hinterkaifeck footprints led toward the home and stopped, because the killer had gone inside and never left. The OP's prints told a different story entirely. There was no trail leading in or out, and nothing inside the home had been disturbed. More importantly, the Hinterkaifeck murders happened within days of the farmers first noticing the footprints. OP's situation had been repeating over multiple nights with no escalation, so the case doesn't actually share much beyond the snow. Now, as for the camera capturing nothing, that part is far easier to explain than the OP seemed to think. Looking into the Ring doorbell camera the OP was using, you find that it doesn't record continuously. It only begins recording after its motion sensor is triggered, and there's a well-documented delay between detection and the actual start of the footage. Numerous Ring users have reported their cameras consistently missing people approaching and only capturing them walking away, if at all. On top of that, the motion sensor can shut down for up to 30 minutes between detections. So when you...
Bro, they need to work on that shit, bro. Like, that ass. Because, you know, when there's actually something that needs to be captured, there's always some fucking issue that needs to be like, you know what I'm saying? Fetch your camera, bro. Like, either get a new one or invest on something that is more, you know, better. You know what I'm saying?
Factor in snow, cold weather, possible weak Wi-Fi, and a doorbell camera that had just been moved from its normal position to the backyard, it starts to make sense why the intruder was never caught on camera, which is probably also why the footprints suddenly stopped by the 3rd day. And weeks later, when it snowed again, OP confirmed that no new prints appeared. So, whoever it was had been watching closely enough to notice a new camera in the yard and decided the house was no longer worth the risk. We will likely never know what exactly their intentions were.
It could be possibly a robbery or a plan to, you know, murder someone. I don't know. But I think them taking out their boots and shoes, whatever the fuck, like what they said, they can't trace that shit, bro. Meaning, he's already done this before. So somebody had, bro. It's crazy how there was no he couldn't capture nobody on camera. Someone's walking around with no shoes, just barefoot, bro. Somebody has to like literally just be, bro. If it was a robbery, it could you wouldn't be just barefooted and just go. I don't know. I feel like it just wouldn't make sense. My theory, bro. My own theory is, I think there's like ghosts or some shit, bro. Yeah, that's just my personal opinion right now, bro. Because I don't know how to explain this, bro. Like, who just walks around barefoot, especially in the cold, in the snow, bro? Bro, like, fuck no.
On August 2nd, 2014, Reddit user Stev Goldhound made a chilling post that immediately caught the platform's attention. Seriously creepy. A picture of a man with an axe on a decommissioned military frigate being broken up for scrap. Must read. The post linked to an Imgur gallery where the person told the full story and shared the image. As I've said in previous posts, I work at sea. Last month, we came into dry dock to carry out refit and repairs. Dry dock is when a ship is brought into a lock, the gates closed, and all the water pumped out, leaving the ship high and dry on the blocks, thus allowing repairs/inspections, etc. of the underside of the hull. Next to us was an old military frigate being broken down for scrap. She had arrived about 2 weeks prior to us. Once the frigate was on the blocks and dry, all the crew left and the old girl to her fate. A sad sight, but that's how these things go. Once all the sensitive stuff had been removed, the dock workers were free to go on. The dock foreman, John, went on board first with a camera to take pictures of work areas. He took a couple of hundred all in all. This was one of them. The image showed a narrow corridor inside the ship, but right near the edge of that flash and barely visible in the shadows, there was a figure peeking from the corner, and in his hand he appeared to be holding an axe. OP went on to explain how John had been moving through the ship. He later sent all of the pics to his boss, who upon seeing this one, called John straight away asking, "Who is the guy with the axe at the edge of the camera flash?" John...
Dude, that'd be so scary, bro. And he was on the ship this whole time? Imagine, bro. You're off seas, bro. And I'm pretty sure there's people that sleeps in one of these ships. And you have a motherfucker that walks around with an axe in one hand, probably wearing a mask. Who knows? It looks like he's wearing like an old person mask. But damn, bro, I'll be so scared seeing that shit, bro. And imagine you're sleeping in the bunk beds, and and at the second you wake up, it's this motherfucker in your face, bro. No, fuck that. Bro, I'm gonna have to fight back, bro. This is why we need to have some sort of weapons. And like, do they have weapons? Like offshore people that does stuff like this? Let me know. I'm very curious, but still, bro, we need some type of security or something, because how do you let this motherfucker in? Bro, the wrong one. But you know what I'm saying? I got scared. I ain't gonna lie.
Had no idea. He never saw anyone. The area where this picture was taken was in a cross alleyway deep inside the ship. He was going around with a torch and a camera. When he'd go to take a picture, he would turn off the torch, snap the shot, turn the torch back on, and be on his way. This means when John took this photo, he was standing completely blind in the middle of a decommissioned warship with nothing but the split-second flash of his camera between him and whoever was in that doorway. The OP also mentioned that because the vessel was military, a police search was called immediately. A search was carried out, but no one was found. There was one way on and off the ship, and that was by a gangway covered by CCTV. You couldn't jump over the side as it was a 25-meter drop onto concrete. No one was seen to leave the ship after John had taken this. Once the post reached Reddit, users started enhancing the image, adjusting the brightness and contrast levels to pull more detail out of the shadows. The clearer version wasn't enough to identify exactly who it was, but it made it unmistakably clear that it was a human, leaving no chance of dismissing it as a random piece of machinery or an unusual shadow. What was harder to explain, though, was the face. It looked almost featureless, with no visible eyes reflecting the flash and skin that seemed gray and waxy, like it was made of plastic.
Bro, why does it always happen? Like, whenever they capture a ghost, like somebody, bro, the camera is always blurry, bro. Like, come on, bro. We need to work on getting on, better pictures and, bro. I think with a little AI, maybe we can cook something up.
For most people in the thread, the answer was simple, but still quite unsettling. It just looks like an old hobo who was startled that someone was in his home taking pictures, so he grabbed an axe and peeked around a corner to see what was up. An axe hobo is still scary. Now,
Right.
considering
Facts.
the setting, this theory isn't exactly impossible. Some
Why
commenters
the fuck
later
was he there in
identified
the
the ship
beginning?
as the HMS Cornwall, a former Royal Navy Type 22 frigate that was being scrapped around that time. These ships are massive, and by the time they're being dismantled, they're full of stripped rooms, dark passageways, and partially open compartments, which is exactly the kind of place a homeless person could wander into. A
Okay.
user who claimed to have served on a submarine backed this theory up, saying naval vessels are full of hidden gaps and tight sections large enough to crawl through or move across without being detected. So,
Oh,
the
shit.
fact that police didn't find anyone after searching the vessel may simply mean that whoever was in there either slipped out before the search started or knew the ship better than the people looking for him. But
Hey, bro.
this theory only works if the photo itself is real. As with most internet mysteries that get this much attention, some users were understandably skeptical of the photo. They pointed out that the figure could have easily been a friend in a mask, photoshopped, or even a CPR dummy propped up in the corridor. But
Right.
there are still a few details that make the story hard to dismiss completely. For starters, according to the OP, John was an old-school steelworker who used a Nokia 3210 as his personal phone.
Of
Not
course,
exactly
bro.
the type of person who would Photoshop images for internet attention. And secondly, one user ran the photo through a forensic analysis tool and they didn't find any obvious signs of digital editing. Of course, that still doesn't rule out the simpler possibility that the scene was staged in front of the camera, which leaves only two realistic explanations. Either someone in the dockyard created an extremely convincing hoax, or John unknowingly photographed a real person hiding inside the abandoned warship. If
For
that
what?
second theory is true, and the man with the axe was close enough to be caught by the flash, it also means he could have been close enough to reach John before he could run to safety. And in a pitch-black corridor, John would have had no idea someone was moving toward him until it was already too late.
What do you guys think?
On April 18th, 2019, Reddit user Wooden Head made a post with the title, "Someone on Facebook thrift page found this chilling message in some old drawers." Attached were two images of a drawer that had apparently been bought from a thrift store. The first one showed a message written inside the drawer, "The truth is under," and the second image showed the underside of that same drawer, where another message read, "The body lies at," followed by a set of GPS coordinates.
Holy
Now,
shit.
the first reaction most people had was that this was some kind of joke. Just someone writing a disturbing message on an old piece of furniture to scare whoever eventually found it years later. In fact, multiple people in the comments admitted doing the same when they were younger. "I did that once as a kid. I wrote, 'Don't look for the body under the apple tree in the backyard. You'll find more than you bargained for.' I used to do dumb things like this as a
That's what you wrote as a kid, bro? What the fuck? Look, first of all, how old were you? Second, I don't even know kids fucking write like that, bro. I'll probably make, like, I don't know, like stick figures and do some crazy shit, but that's crazy.
kid hoping people would find it later. So, under normal circumstances, a post like this probably would have been dismissed within minutes as another creepy internet hoax. But when people started
Yeah.
plugging the coordinates into Google Maps, instead of leading to some random empty field or suburban backyard, the location felt way too specific to ignore. The coordinates pointed directly into the
What
Avon
the
Park
fuck?
Air Force Range, which is a massive military training ground in central Florida that spans more than 100,000 acres. At first, a few Florida users talked about going there to see what was actually at the location. But those plans fell apart immediately after a user who owned property just north of the pinned spot recognized the area and warned everyone to stay away. "I own recreational property just north of that location. As someone else mentioned, the pin location is inside the Avon Park Bombing Range, or MacDill AFB. We ride our four-wheelers down to the very southeast end of the
Bro, that's crazy, bro. There's literally people who are willing to go there, bro. And I understand, like, that's crazy good to go there, but you gotta respect people who does stupid shit like this, bro. You really do, bro. Not even joking. People will go to places that no one wants to go, but you that's some this is some like crazy thing to do, and you gotta show some respect. It's crazy, and I like it. I don't like it because it's like, why would you do that? But at the same time, I appreciate you putting the time and it really like going out and trying to figure out what the fuck is this. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to you, man. Whoever the fuck went there, anyways.
property and watch them do bombing runs. Aside from trespassing on a military installation, you do not want to go trekking out there. Lots of unexploded ordnance. According to this user,
Yeah, don't just because you guys are curious, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go and just go into like restricted areas and explore, because that can get you in trouble and you'll probably go to jail or some shit like that, bro. So don't go off and just do, you know what I'm saying? Just don't do that. Yeah.
the area was a live bombing range, surrounded by restricted land and unexploded ordnance, which are undetonated military explosives. So even if someone nearby wanted to check it, this wasn't a place a civilian could simply walk into with a shovel, which is actually what made the whole thing so disturbing. If this was a hoax, then the location was almost too perfect and specific, and a bombing range is also an almost perfect place to actually hide a body. Nobody goes there, and the ground is already so torn up from years of explosives that fresh digging would blend right in. And any remains left near an active target zone could eventually be destroyed by ordnance, causing the evidence to erase itself over time. This theory was supported by another commenter who pointed out how easy it would be for someone with military access to move through the area without drawing attention. If the killer worked there, they would have access, and it's not like the gate guards would be searching their car. There would be some camera evidence, but when you've been there for some time, you know your way around and where the blind spots are. Besides, the specific location is in a remote part that's probably rarely driven past, if at all. Even with all these possibilities floating around, nothing was more unsettling than the coordinates themselves. They weren't just rough directions to a vague area, they were written out specifically to 6 decimal points. According to GIS standard, this narrows a location down to roughly 0.11 meters, which is precise enough to mark the exact position of a single human grave. So, while the hoax theory still sounds the most reasonable, it's also strange to imagine someone going that far just to scare a stranger buying old furniture. Eventually, the post gained enough traction that people began contacting law enforcement. According to an update shared by the OP, a friend of theirs contacted the Polk County Sheriff's Office, only to find out the homicide detective had already been alerted by someone else earlier that same day. But a second update revealed that the situation became complicated almost immediately because the coordinates landed on military property. Since the location sat near the boundary between Polk County and Highlands County, there was confusion over which department actually had jurisdiction over the area. However, even without that dispute, neither department could simply drive out there and start digging.
Why?
The area was part of an active Air Force bombing range, so they needed military authorization before anyone could safely enter the site. The OP ended the update by saying they would return with more information once investigators looked into it. But that update never came, and the last activity under that thread dates back to over 6 years ago. Searching through local reporting and public records from both Polk and Highlands County doesn't bring up any evidence that a search was ever officially carried out at the coordinates. And with no concrete evidence of any criminal activity, the more likely possibility is still that someone simply wrote the message in the drawer as a joke and was designed well enough to drag both the internet and the police into the same mystery.
Yeah,
but until someone physically goes to the location and checks firsthand, we will never know for sure.
I think that could be more reasonable.
A wrap that rises above the rest. A freshly toasted tortilla loaded with char-grilled chicken, crispy.
Yeah, I think somebody just wrote it down just to scare people, just to like, see what people would say or do. So I think that's more realistic that way. But if it's, bro, like, it's crazy. I never even thought about it. You can literally hide bodies at like this military like bomb place where they just drop bombs, you know what I'm saying? and it's very restricted. You can't go there. You know what I'm saying? No civilian that doesn't go there. And I could see that could possibly. It's a theory, but like bro, that'd be crazy if someone in the military did something bad and that ends up hiding the body in like some, you know, some like bomb range areas and shit like that. You're not supposed to go there and stuff like that. That's a crazy theory. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a bit of a stretch. But at the same time, anybody could have just wrote it down and just prank anybody, bro. I don't know.
July 20th, 2021, Reddit user ProlapseThis posted to the investigative subreddit RBI, which read, "Police didn't investigate and it's been bothering me. At around 8:30, 8:45, I arrived home from a quick trip to town to grab a beer. As I got out of my car, I could hear something. I thought for a moment that I'd left the TV on and was hearing it from outside. But as I walked to the front of my car and pressed the lock button on my remote, I realized that what I was hearing was screaming. I listened for a second, thinking it was somebody screwing around, but then the woman's voice screamed, 'No, stop, you're hurting me, you're killing me,' and an adult male voice yelling something I couldn't make out. There was a dog barking from the same direction, as well as a repeated thudding noise. I immediately dialed 911 and told the police. They could even hear the screaming in the background. They said they'd send an officer to drive by, but an hour passed and none came. I watched for them on my security cameras. The screaming was coming from directly where the camera is pointed, but more than 50 feet away across a narrow field. There is a small shack that has a couple of cars, usually parked at the road just on the other side of the field. It is bothering me a lot, since I'm 41 years old and I've never heard anything so disturbing in real life." The OP also attached a Dropbox link containing 2 clips from his security cameras.
Oh,
One
shit.
of them shows him standing outside while on the phone with 911, and in the background, a scream can clearly be heard.
Out at Rocky Fork Lake. I'm not real sure the address. I'm at my home.
The second clip came from a backyard camera pointed toward the narrow field and the small shack beyond it. And although a lot of the audio is buried beneath the outdoor AC unit, it captures how the screaming went on for several minutes without stopping.
What?
Since the OP lived in a rural area, some of the first comments suggested the sounds could have come from a wild animal, especially a fox, since foxes are known for screams that can sound disturbingly human. But the OP
That could be true. There are animals out there that can sound and mimic human, bro. I think there was one bird. I don't remember the bird's name, but there was a bird that sounded like it was like a baby crying. Not even joking. I literally saw a video and yeah, it's like it just sounded like a baby, bro. And like, bro, imagine having one of those birds and training it to kind of like just lure in people and that's, bro, I'm crazy, bro. I'm sorry, bro. And there's more too. There's a lot more like animals that I'm especially birds, like specifically birds, bro. Just like a whole different species of birds that has so many different, like their own versions of like what they sound like, bro. But the one that sticks out to me is the one that just sounds like a baby crying, bro. That's scary, bro. And you know what I'm saying? And that's just the birds, bro. There's a lot of animals that sound like human beings, bro.
rejected that idea immediately. While I've never heard a fox screaming, "Stop it, you're killing me," and the man's voice screaming would have been
Right.
awfully deep for a fox. Some users tried finding less disturbing explanations, with one user suggesting the screams could have come from a TV playing a horror movie. It is creepy. It could possibly be from a movie, or I don't know, any chance something could be being filmed in the area, so like this was acting. Another person even named the specific film they thought was playing. But when you factor in the dog barking and the repeated thuds coming from the same direction as the screams, the situation felt a lot more like someone was being heard in the background. Eventually, most commenters arrived at the same unsettling conclusion. Whatever the OP recorded was most likely a domestic violence situation happening somewhere inside or around that shack, which is exactly what made the police response feel so disturbing. According to the OP, the dispatcher could hear the screaming during the call, and yet no officer came by that night. Even when he followed up the
What?
next morning, the property still wasn't checked, and the only clear instruction he received was not to trespass or he'd be cited. Unsurprisingly, this didn't sit right with the commenters. A lot of them began speculating that the police may have already known more about the property or the people living there than they were letting on. 100%, because they know who it was, and it was a coworker slash family member slash friend. This is why they didn't respond immediately, which at the time seemed like the most disturbing theory. And with the OP now explicitly warned by police not to investigate the property himself, the thread slowly went quiet for several weeks. Until September 7th, when he came back with an update. I guess they finally had a reason to go out and check the property I was trying to tell them to look at. There are sheriff's cars all over the place, and cops in gloves walking in and out of this garage, and one cop throwing up in the front yard. The update heavily implied that something horrific had finally been discovered at the property after all, but it still didn't explain exactly what had happened. And without another follow-up, the thread once again fell back into uncertainty. Unfortunately, 5 months later, that uncertainty ended in the worst possible way. On February 7th, 2022, OP finally returned to the subreddit with a follow-up post. I posted last year about coming home and hearing a female voice screaming for her life. I posted a video with the audio of the scream and got plenty of comments. About 2 months later, the house it was coming from had sheriff's cars all around it. I found out that an elderly man had taken his life via gunshot and that his son was the only person home and the person who reported that his father had taken his life. Fast forward to last week, I was sitting at home watching YouTube when I heard gunshots. I live in the country and that's common, so I didn't think anything of it. Turns out it was the sound of that son murdering his mother. He was trying to claim self-defense, but he is being charged with murder. I live next door and my security cameras caught the audio of the murder. It also captures the vehicle the son made his getaway in. I've had detectives in and out gathering video footage for the past week. His son was 40-year-old Tim Johnson II. According to reports, on the night of January 29, 2022, Tim contacted the Clermont County Sheriff's Office and told them that his mother, 61-year-old Stephanie Cheney, had taken her life. But when Highland County deputies arrived, the evidence at the scene didn't support that story. There were multiple bullet holes in the front of the house that appeared to have been fired from inside, with shell casings near Stephanie's body and a loaded firearm magazine sitting next to the coffee table in the living room. So, when investigators questioned Tim under pressure, he confessed to murdering his mother, claiming he did it because he felt threatened by her for always carrying a pistol in her purse. Tim was arrested and later sentenced to 15 years to life. But knowing all of this now places the original Reddit post in a much darker light. The woman screaming, "You're hurting me, you're killing me," that night in July 2021 was almost certainly Stephanie Cheney, and the man whose voice the OP couldn't quite make out was most likely her own son. Which means that recording may have captured only a small piece of a much larger and troubling pattern of violence inside that home, one that would eventually leave both parents dead within 6 months of each other. And when you factor in that Tim later tried to stage his mother's murder as self-inflicted, it becomes harder to ignore the possibility surrounding his father's death months earlier, which had also been ruled as self-inflicted at the time. Even OP himself pointed this out in his follow-up update. This is a family annihilator. They are now looking at him for the murder of his father as well. But the most tragic part is how preventable all of this looks in hindsight.
Yeah, bro. This could literally be prevented if they actually did their job and checked the house, bro. I don't know why they didn't want to check the house or didn't want anybody else in the area to check out the house, bro. Like, why? You know what I'm saying? If there's just disturbance, if there was something going on, if you hear screams and especially you hear a woman screaming like, oh, like bloody murder, the fucking, you hear that, if that's been going on for like minutes, bro, yes, of course people's gonna be concerned. They want, have someone check it out. You know what I'm saying? If the cops ain't doing their job, why can't we just check out ourselves and see what's going on? Because, like this is, like, you know what I'm saying? This doesn't really happen when you live in a neighborhood that is very quiet and stuff like that. And stuff like this, when something like this happens, the cops don't do shit, bro. Like, I don't know why they don't want to check it. If this has been an occurrence thing, if this, I'm sorry, I can't even speak right now. If this has been going on for a while, why hasn't the cop done anything about it, bro? Somebody called them. and said that there's something going on in the house and can you send somebody to check it out? Nobody did. I don't know why. Like it's crazy.
If local police had taken OP's reports seriously and responded properly, lives may have been saved. On May 25th, 2021, this image was posted by Anxious Phase 4140 in the subreddit Morbid Reality.
Wait, I think I've seen this before. Oh, fuck, I did see this before. I forgot how the story went. But I have seen this picture before somewhere in the internet.
The image shows a woman crouched beneath the roof edge, pressing herself as far into the corner as she can with a phone held to her ear. And just behind her, climbing over the other side of the roof, is a man. The title of the post explained the context. This terrifying photo reveals the moment a woman climbed onto her roof to hide from home intruder, only for him to appear behind her. The reactions in the comments were exactly what you'd expect. But the more people looked at the image, the more unsettling the situation became. Because burglars usually avoid confrontation. If someone inside the house notices them and starts running, the logical move is to take the opportunity to escape before police arrive. Yet, this man made a conscious decision to follow her, something one of the top comments on the Reddit thread pointed to. If someone breaking into your house is this determined, they're not just there for your possessions. And that suspicion only got worse when several users zoomed in on the man's right hand, where he appeared to be holding something that looked like a knife. The image wasn't clear enough to confirm what it was. But when people eventually tracked down the full story behind the photo, the details turned out to be just as disturbing as everyone feared. The incident happened in September of 2014 in Venice, Los Angeles, and the woman in the image was identified as actress Melora Rivera. Melora had been home alone and asleep when the break-in started. According to reports, she woke up after the intruder shattered part of her front door and reached through the opening to unlock it from the inside.
Once I saw him in the house, I knew that we both couldn't be there. I knew that I didn't want to have a confrontation with him of any sort, not knowing what his intention was.
The moment she realized someone was inside the house, Melora grabbed their phone and climbed out of the second-story window, hiding herself beneath the edge of the roof to call 911. But while she was still on the phone with the dispatcher, the intruder followed her out through the same window. At that point, Melora was trapped. The drop from the roof was over 20 feet, which was far too high to jump without risking serious injury. So her only option was to stay completely still and hope that the intruder wouldn't come around to her side before the police arrived. Fortunately, officers arrived within 2 minutes and were eventually able to talk the man into surrendering on the roof, while firefighters brought Melora down safely using a ladder. The intruder was identified as 29-year-old Christian Hicks, and the people who knew the neighborhood immediately recognized him as a homeless man who was often seen in the area. When investigators pulled his record, it became clear that this wasn't his first violent encounter with the law. He had 2 prior convictions. One in 2008 for carrying a loaded, unregistered handgun, and another in 2011 for inflicting injury on a spouse or partner. But even with that history, it still didn't answer why he had chosen Melora's house specifically. There was nothing suggesting he had any personal connection to her before that.
Nah, I just think that he's probably on something and he just kind of went off and find somebody, I guess, randomly, and he, unfortunately picked her, so it's, it sucks, but I don't think he had any personal issues with her. It's just more like, oh, that I want her gone. You know what I mean? That's a scary thing to think about, bro. Like, anybody can just literally follow you from home, like follow you to your house, bro, and once they find where you live, bro, they can just start, who knows, bro? Like, you don't know their intention, bro.
Morning. The only clue for why he ended up at her house came from what happened earlier that morning. According to reports, Christian had already been detained that same morning after a neighbor saw him wandering through someone else's yard around 7:30 a.m. Witnesses later said they had seen him acting erratically in the neighborhood even before Melora's encounter. But when the police detained him, the caller refused to identify him in person, and officers were legally forced to release him. Looking at both incidents side by side, several reports described Christian as mentally ill and behaving unprofessionally unpredictably in the hours leading up to the break-in, which means that Melora was likely never the actual target. By the time Christian reached her house, he was already drifting through the neighborhood in a paranoid and unstable state without any clear destination or reason. Melora may have simply been the unlucky person whose home he entered once that spiral reached its worst point. And once he got inside, whatever state he was in pushed him to keep following her even after she climbed onto the roof trying to escape. Fortunately though, she made it off that roof unharmed. But it's hard not to imagine how much worse that morning could have become if police hadn't arrived in time.
Another banger from Chimney Scared, bro. You really gotta be careful because there's literally a lot of crazy people out there. You gotta make sure to protect yourself, you know, always carry something, you know, self-defense and stuff like that, because this world is just dangerous, bro. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 1K. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.